My constituents in San Diego are acutely aware of these issues. I do think it was progress to do the fire fix. I worked really hard on that to make sure that we weren't spending our prevention money on fighting fires because it just makes it harder to do. You're never going to catch up. Mr. O'Mara, I had two questions for you, though, specifically on the Clean Air Act. In your testimony, you noted the strange thing where in terms of calculating your compliance, whether you're in attainment of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, you're penalized for prescribed burns, but not necessarily for natural burns that happen as a result of not taking care of things. You suggest that EPA can take care of this themselves. Is that not something Congress has to do, or tell me why EPA can change that? Yeah,
I mean, if you go back to the record in the Clean Air Act amendments in 1990, this anthropogenic versus natural kind of distinction isn't as clear-cut as you might think. I mean, it's been an administrative practice, and the challenge is that you have to build your prescribed burn in your state implementation plan and basically account for it. If you have a wildfire, you have to, it's basically excluded. You get a kind of an exemption because it's kind of considered natural. The challenge is, so I was in Delaware at the time, we're trying to prescribe burns. Delaware it has so many challenges with being downwind pollution from coal plants and things like that in the Midwest. There's nowhere to put it in the SIP, right? You got to find a different place and some other source to offset. And so it becomes a big burden. So you end up not doing the very thing that would help protect you long-term because of the potential penalty.
So you think that can be addressed at an administrative
I believe so.
level?
I believe so, but yeah.
Okay. One other question for you. I liked what you did, which was sort of threw out your notes, so I'll throw out my notes a little bit and ask you, if you were in charge of allocating money for fire, where would you put it first? What would be, you think, the highest priority for new fire money? And
there are great collaborative plans that have been on the books for years that don't have the resources to get on the ground. I mean, I think I would prioritize the kind of the wildland urban interface projects that have the potential loss of human life.
So
I would pour money into mitigation. I would pour money into prescribed burns. I'd pour money into the collaborative plans that already have buy-in among communities because they're going to move faster through the process. But I mean, we need to move from a couple acres a year to tens of millions of acres a year. We don't have the capacity at this point. I mean, the Forest Service has been, through sequester, I mean, their resources were taken down so far, in addition to not having the money because of the fire borrowing issue. I mean, we got to rebuild fire capacity in this country at both the federal and state level.
The collaborative plans you talk about are regional collaborative plans?
At the regional level, yeah.
Right, okay. Then what sort of management reforms would you like to see enacted? Management reforms, because I have to confess, I hear a lot of discussion back and forth that sounds like disagreement, but never quite understand kind of what is it that we're fighting over.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there are places where you could have more efficient processes, right? I mean, there's things where, maybe not having to go through the same level of review for individual parts of a project if you actually do the analysis at the landscape level. I mean, we've layered on so many parts of the process.
How do I write that down? How do I write that down from here? Like, what does that mean?
We'd love to work with you on it. There are ways to do it. I mean, there was some language that Senator Cantwell was working on around Ponderosa Pine, basically trying to say, look, if it fits this kind of landscape project, we'll have kind of one analysis, kind of one environmental impact review, as opposed to having to do every individual discrete component. So there are some things we could do at the landscape level. Some of that could be done administratively, and if the Forest Service had predictable resources to be able to do that kind of planning. But a lot of these forest plans are 20 and 30 and 40 years old. It means that we're updating project plans. We're not looking at the landscape level. And I would love to work with you on that, because I think that could be bipartisan. I don't think that would be a controversial issue.
Okay, we would. I mean, obviously, I'm particularly interested in the urban forest interface, and I'm concerned about the fact that it's not even October, and we've already had a fire season. Right. We're not even into October, so we're getting ready for what we hear from our local firefighters is as bad a condition or worse than 2003 and 2007, which were the fires that cost San Diego County a lot of property and money and damage. So we're very interested in taking you up on that, and we'll look forward to talking to you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.